There was this guy who did something that seemed completely strange to everyone around him. Every single morning for 27 days straight, he showed up to the same spot at the same exact time. No scrolling through his phone, no listening to those affirmation playlists everyone swears by, no fancy vision board propped up in front of him, nothing like that at all. He just sat there in complete stillness, staring out into what seemed like nothing, and he smiled. That's it, just smiled. His friends started to think maybe he'd lost his drive, like maybe he was going through something and couldn't keep up anymore. His mentors were genuinely concerned, thinking he was letting opportunities slip away while everyone else was grinding and hustling. But then something wild happened. On day 28, without him reaching out to anyone, without him launching some big campaign or pushing any agenda, three massive opportunities that he'd been dreaming about for literal years just showed up in his inbox. Out of nowhere. It looked completely random to anyone watching from the outside. Almost too easy, right? Like it couldn't possibly be real. But here's the thing, was it actually random? What nobody else picked up on was that during those 27 days, this man wasn't just sitting around doing nothing. He was actively working on something incredibly powerful. He was dismantling the exact energetic frequency that had been blocking his natural flow for years and years. He was letting go of this identity he'd built around constant doing. This belief system that said your worth equals how much you hustle and that more effort automatically means faster results. He stopped performing for the universe like it was some kind of audience he had to impress. Instead, he finally started listening, really listening. And here's the truth that most people never talk about, the truth that might actually shake up everything you thought you knew about manifestation. The quantum field, this invisible fabric of reality that connects everything, doesn't actually respond to what you do. It responds to something way more subtle and honestly, way more powerful than action. And the crazy part is, most people completely miss this. They're so focused on the doing that they forget about the being. That's exactly why they end up exhausted and burned out. That's why they find themselves stuck in the same repeating patterns, living the same timeline over and over again. That's why they can follow every single step in the manifestation handbook and still feel disconnected from what they want, still feel unfulfilled, still feel like the universe just can't see them or hear them. They've become fluent in speaking the language of action and effort. But the quantum field only understands one language, and that's frequency. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just any old frequency we're talking about here. It's the specific signal of who you are when absolutely nobody is watching. When you're not actively trying to manifest something. When you're not writing in your journal or visualizing or looking for signs that it's all working. That quiet moment when you're just being yourself, that's actually when the universe listens the most intently. In the world of quantum physics, this isn't some mystical woo-woo concept. It's about coherence. Your physical body acts like a broadcasting transmitter, sending signals out into the field. Your thoughts carry electrical charges. Your heart generates magnetic fields. When these two forces work together, they create this unique signature, like a vibrational fingerprint that's constantly transmitting out into the quantum field. And what's it broadcasting? Not your carefully worded desires or your perfectly crafted affirmations. It's broadcasting your state, your actual energetic state in every moment. And here's the part that might be hard to hear. You could be doing everything right on the surface, following all the right steps, saying all the right things, but still unconsciously broadcasting a signal that says none of this is actually working. You might be writing out your dream life with incredible detail and precision while simultaneously emitting a frequency of desperation and need. You might be visualizing yourself living in luxury and abundance while your nervous system is still completely wired for survival mode, for scarcity, for danger. That invisible contradiction right there, that's what prevents timelines from collapsing into your reality. And look, this isn't about blaming yourself or feeling bad about where you are. It's about developing precise awareness. Because once you truly understand what the quantum field is actually hearing and responding to, you can stop wasting all that precious energy trying to convince it through more effort and more action. You can start speaking the only language it really understands, and that language is embodiment. The man who sat there in silence for 27 days wasn't being lazy or checking out. He was recalibrating his entire system. He was remembering something that most of us completely forget in all the noise and chaos of trying to force life to happen. You're not here on this planet to earn your way into alignment with your desires. You're here to return to that alignment, to remember it, and that return, that remembering, it can't be faked. It can only be genuinely felt. The irony in all of this is that most people are out here trying to manifest using a language that the quantum field simply can't understand or interpret. They're relying on words, strategies, hustle culture, complex rituals, and techniques. But the field isn't logical like our minds are. It's vibrational. It doesn't care about interpreting what you do or how much effort you put in. What it interprets is the energy and frequency from which you're doing all of those things. So, let me ask you something real quick. If you stopped all external effort today, if you just paused everything you're doing to try to make things happen, would your energy still be magnetic enough to naturally draw your future toward you? Would you still be that compelling? This is the hidden truth we are going to dive deep into throughout this entire video. Because it's not actually about doing nothing and just sitting around. It's about becoming someone who no longer vibrates from a place of lack and scarcity. Someone who doesn't perform manifestation like it's a theatrical show. Someone who doesn't demand that the field deliver results on their timeline, but instead becomes the version of themselves that the quantum field literally cannot ignore. By the time you reach the end of this journey we're taking together, you won't be sitting there guessing and wondering why certain things still aren't showing up in your life. You'll have crystal clear understanding of what signal you've been unconsciously sending out into the field and exactly how to transform it from static noise and interference into a clear, harmonious symphony. But to get to that place of clarity, we need to go deeper into how this all actually works. In the next part of what we are exploring, we're going to uncover why even really well-intentioned spiritual people who are doing all the right practices, still fail to collapse timelines and bring their desires into reality. You're going to discover the quantum miscommunication that happens between your conscious intentions and your actual energetic field, and how to realign these two forces, not through more effort or more techniques, but through emotional congruence and consistency. Because here's the truth, the field is already listening to you right now. It's just not listening to what you think it's listening to, what you expect it to hear. And once you tune into what it's actually hearing and responding to, everything in your reality begins to shift in ways you couldn't have planned or predicted. You've probably experienced this strange phenomenon before, maybe more times than you realize. That weird moment when everything in your external world looks absolutely perfect on the surface. You're checking all the boxes, you're doing all the supposedly right things, you're staying focused, you're organized, you might even be feeling hopeful and positive. Yet something inside you feels off, like there's this tension humming beneath the surface, this subtle resistance, almost like your body just isn't buying what your mind is selling. That precise moment right there, that's when the quantum field is truly tuning in and listening, not to what you consciously said or planned or intended, but to what you unconsciously, viscerally, energetically transmitted without even realizing it. This is the exact point where everything either starts to click and make sense or completely falls apart. Because most people operate under this assumption that the universe works like a parent figure, rewarding you for effort and obedience and discipline. But the quantum field isn't parental at all. It's not moral or judgmental. It's mathematical and precise. It's constantly calculating coherence. It reflects resonance back to you. It responds to your signal, not to your strategy or your plan. And that signal is always happening right now, in this present moment, not in some future timeline you're trying to reach. In the worlds of neuroscience and quantum biology, there's a concept called state-dependent encoding. What this means is your body literally stores memories, experiences, and expectations based on how you've emotionally repeated certain frequencies over and over throughout your life. So, this means that even if you're visualizing abundance every morning, if you're emotionally replaying and rehearsing the feeling of scarcity throughout your day, the quantum field is going to echo scarcity right back to you. Not to punish you or because you're doing something wrong, but simply to mirror back what you're actually transmitting. Let me simplify this concept so it really lands. Imagine you walk into a room and you're holding a tuning fork that's vibrating at 432 Hz. If there's another tuning fork somewhere else in that room that's tuned to that exact same frequency, even if it's across the room with no physical contact between them, that second fork will start to vibrate too. No touch, no force, no effort required, just pure resonance. That's exactly, and I mean exactly, what happens with manifestation and the quantum field. The field doesn't grant wishes like some cosmic vending machine, it responds to coherence and resonance. When your intention, your emotion, and your embodiment all align and match, you become like a powerful broadcast tower. And everything in the quantum field that's tuned to that same frequency starts moving toward you. Not because you're desperately asking for it or begging for it, but because you're naturally vibrating at that frequency, like that tuning fork. But here's where the paradox comes in, and it's a big one. The very moment you start trying to be in a high frequency, the moment you start forcing it or performing it, you've already lost that frequency. Because trying in itself is a form of resistance. Wanting something is acknowledging its absence. Performing is rooted in insecurity, and the quantum field picks up on all of that immediately, without delay. This is exactly why so many people hit this frustrating plateau in their manifestation journey. They're working incredibly hard, putting in all this effort trying to manifest from their logical minds. But meanwhile, their bodies are still holding on to deep frequencies of fear, separation, and scarcity. Their words and affirmations are expressing one thing, but their energetic field, that unseen electromagnetic signature surrounding their entire body, is telling a completely different story. Let me make this super concrete and practical for you. You sit down and write in your journal every single morning, I am abundant, I am aligned, I am magnetic. But inside your body, there's this tightness in your chest. You keep catching yourself watching the clock, checking your phone, waiting anxiously for some sign that proves it's all working. That tension you feel, that restlessness, that's your true signal. That's exactly what the quantum field is picking up on and responding to. Because while your conscious mind is busy speaking words and affirmations, your subconscious mind, which controls about 95% of your actual signal, only communicates through emotion. And emotion, my friend, is magnetic. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time. He often says that elevated emotion combined with clear intention is the actual formula for creation in the quantum field. But here's what happens with most people. They focus only on the intention part. They completely skip over the emotional rehearsal piece. They declare their desires with their words, but emotionally they're transmitting the total opposite feeling. That's like dialing the correct phone number, but then whispering your message into the wrong phone entirely. Now, here's where we get into the quantum mechanics of it all. The quantum field doesn't understand future tense. There's literally no such thing as I will in the language of pure energy. The field only mirrors your current state, what you're being right now. So, if you're constantly stuck in a state of becoming, always reaching for the next level, you never actually arrive anywhere. If you're always reaching and striving, you're constantly broadcasting the signal that says it's not here yet, I don't have it yet. And so it obediently stays away from you, perfectly following your signal like a loyal mirror. But there's even more to this. Many people, and maybe this is you, unconsciously use manifestation as a performance for safety and security. They don't actually believe they're worthy or enough unless they achieve something external. So they chase results desperately just to feel okay about themselves, completely unaware that this very chase, this frantic energy, is the exact frequency that keeps pushing away what they want. The irony is painful but true. They're manifesting from unworthiness while trying to manifest worthiness. They're proving lack while trying to create abundance. And the field, being the perfect mirror that it is, reflects that confusion right back. This creates what I call the manifestation paradox. The harder you try, the further you push it away. The more you need it, the more it eludes you. The more you perform, the less aligned you become. So what's the actual solution here? How do you break free from this cycle? It starts with one fundamental shift in your entire approach. You stop using manifestation to fix yourself or complete yourself. You stop trying to manifest from a broken place that needs healing. Instead, you manifest from wholeness. You begin transmitting from the version of you that already has it, that already is it. Not as a mental trick or fake it till you make it performance, but as a genuine state shift that your nervous system can actually recognize and trust. And this is where real power enters the picture. Before we go any further into how to make this shift, I want to invite you into something real and genuine. If you've been feeling like something in this message is making sense, if a part of you is starting to realize and remember your own power, your own creative capacity, do me a favor. Tap that like button if you just had an aha moment. Because like really does attract like in this space. And subscribe to stay connected to this frequency. This isn't just content you're consuming. This is a space where we're growing together, shifting together, remembering together. When you approach manifestation this way, something fundamental changes in your system. You're no longer manipulating energy or trying to trick the universe. You're returning to your natural state. And in that return, in that remembering, the field recognizes you. It responds not because you finally said the right words or did the right technique, but because you stopped contradicting yourself. You became coherent. And coherence, that alignment between what you think, what you feel, and what you embody, that's what collapses timelines and brings parallel realities into your current experience. This is what we're building toward, step by step, layer by layer. Now, let's talk about the invisible broadcast you're sending out every single moment of every single day, whether you're aware of it or not. Your electromagnetic field extends several feet beyond your physical body. This isn't metaphysical speculation, this is measurable science. Researchers at the Heart Math Institute have documented this extensively. Your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, and this field carries information about your emotional state. When you're in fear, that signal is chaotic and incoherent. When you're in love, gratitude, or peace, that signal becomes ordered and coherent. And here's what most people don't realize. That signal is always broadcasting, always. The quantum field is always listening and always responding, even when you're not consciously thinking about manifestation at all. Think about your typical day for a moment. How many times do you check your bank account with anxiety? How many times do you scroll through social media, comparing your life to someone else's? How many times do you replay past failures or worry about future scenarios that haven't even happened? Every single one of those moments is a broadcast. Every thought paired with emotion sends a signal. And the field, being completely impartial and mathematical, simply matches that signal with corresponding circumstances and experiences. This is why changing your external circumstances without changing your internal state never works long term. You might get a temporary win, but you'll unconsciously recreate the same patterns because your signal hasn't fundamentally shifted. So, how do you actually shift your signal? How do you change what you're broadcasting without falling into the trap of trying too hard? This is the art of it all. First, you need to catch yourself in the act of broadcasting the old frequency. This requires presence and awareness. When you notice yourself spiraling into worry or lack or comparison, you don't fight it or resist it or judge yourself for it. You simply notice it. You observe it like you're watching a movie. That observation alone begins to create distance between you and the pattern. It creates a gap, and in that gap, you have choice. You can choose to continue the old broadcast, or you can choose to pulse a new one. Here's a simple but powerful practice. Stop whatever you're doing right now as you're watching or listening to this. Take a deep breath. And I want you to feel into the version of yourself that already has what you desire. Not think about it, feel into it. What does that version of you feel like in your body? How do they breathe? How do they hold their posture? What's their energy like? Are they anxious and grasping? Or are they calm and certain? Spend just 30 seconds embodying that frequency. That's it. 30 seconds. You just pulsed a new signal into the quantum field. And if you do this consistently throughout your day, not obsessively but intentionally, you start to build a new baseline frequency. Your default state begins to shift from lack to abundance, from fear to trust, from separation to connection. In the comments right now, I want you to drop one word that captures the energy you're choosing to carry forward from this moment on. Maybe it's alignment, maybe it's ease, maybe it's power, maybe it's trust, Maybe it's something completely unique to you. Let that word be a small but profound declaration, a signal you're sending not just in this space but into the quantum field itself. Your word matters, your intention matters, because you matter. Let's go even deeper into why this works. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called the observer effect. The simple act of observation changes what's being observed. When scientists observe a particle, it behaves differently than when it's not being observed. This isn't metaphor, this is documented, repeatable science. Your consciousness, your awareness, literally affects physical reality. So, when you observe your own patterns with awareness instead of judgment, when you witness your own signal without trying to force it to change, you're already changing it. The observation itself is the intervention. This is why meditation practices are so powerful. Not because you're escaping reality or bypassing your problem, but because you're training yourself to observe your inner state without being consumed by it. You're learning to be the witness rather than the victim of your own mind. Now, imagine applying this same principle to manifestation. Instead of desperately trying to make something happen, you simply observe the version of reality where it's already happened. You don't force belief. You don't fake emotions. You simply observe the possibility, feel into it, and let your nervous system recognize it as real. The more familiar your system becomes with this frequency, the more naturally it starts to embody it. And when you embody it consistently enough, the quantum field has to reflect it back to you. It's law. It's physics. It's how reality operates. But here's where people get tripped up. They think manifestation is a one-time event. They think they can visualize for 10 minutes in the morning and then worry all day and still get results. It doesn't work like that. Manifestation is happening constantly based on your dominant frequency. If you spend 10 minutes in abundance consciousness and 8 hours in scarcity consciousness, guess which one wins? Your signal is determined by your consistency, not your peak moments. This is why building a practice matters. Not a rigid practice where you're performing for the universe, but a gentle, consistent practice where you're training your system to return to the frequency you want to live from. Think of it like tuning a guitar. If you tune it once and then never touch it again while playing it constantly, it's going to go out of tune. But if you tune it regularly, checking in on it, making small adjustments, it stays in harmony. Your frequency works the same way. You're constantly interacting with a world that tries to pull you out of alignment. Negativity, comparison, worry, stress, these are all invitations to shift your frequency. And you don't resist them or fight them. You simply tune yourself back to your chosen state over and over again until that state becomes your new default setting. Here's something else most people miss entirely. The quantum field responds to gratitude faster than almost any other frequency. Why? Because gratitude is the emotional signature of already having received. When you're genuinely grateful, you're not in lack, you're not in wanting, you're in fulfillment, you're in completion. And that completion frequency is what magnetizes more experiences that match it. This is why gratitude practices aren't just feel-good techniques, they're scientific tools for shifting your broadcast. When you genuinely feel grateful for what you already have, you're telling the field, I am someone who receives, I am someone who has abundance, I am someone who is blessed. And the field goes, okay, let me bring more experiences that match that frequency. But here's the key word, genuine. You can't fake gratitude and expect results. The field doesn't respond to words or performance. It responds to the actual electromagnetic signature your heart is generating. So, if you're saying thank you while feeling resentful or frustrated, you're broadcasting resentment and frustration, not gratitude. This is why authenticity matters so much in this work. You can't trick the field. You can only align with it honestly. Around the 15-minute mark now, and I want to pause and invite you deeper into this practice. What's one thing you truly want to manifest right now? The thing that matters most to you at this moment in your life. Maybe it's financial abundance, maybe it's a loving relationship, maybe it's health and vitality, maybe it's creative success, maybe it's something completely unique to your journey. Drop it in the comments. Let this be a declaration, a signal you're sending not just here, but into the quantum field itself. Be specific, be honest, be real. This isn't about judgment. This is about clarity. Because clarity of desire creates clarity of signal. Now, let me share something that might surprise you. The quantum field doesn't care what you want. It doesn't have preferences. It doesn't judge your desires as good or bad, worthy or unworthy, big or small. It simply responds to the frequency you're broadcasting. This is actually incredibly liberating when you really let it sink in. It means you don't have to earn your desires. You don't have to be good enough or spiritual enough or worthy enough. You simply have to match the frequency of what you're calling in. That's it. A millionaire doesn't broadcast scarcity. A healthy person doesn't broadcast disease. A loved person doesn't broadcast unworthiness. They embody the frequency that matches their reality. And you can do the same thing, starting right now, regardless of what your current circumstances look like. This is where the real transformation happens, not in changing your circumstances directly, but in changing your frequency first and letting your circumstances reorganize themselves to match. It's like rearranging furniture in a room. You don't push each piece individually, you shift the center, and everything else naturally moves into new positions. Your frequency is that center point. Shift it, and everything else reorganizes around it without force or struggle. So you've learned how to identify your signal and pulse a new frequency. You've done the practice, maybe even felt some shifts. For a moment, maybe 5 minutes, or maybe an entire hour, everything feels lighter and clearer. Everything feels like it's finally clicking into place. But then something happens that pulls you out of that state. A text message comes through that triggers doubt. A delay in your plan sparks anxiety. An old situation from your past suddenly pulls you right back into the version of yourself you thought you'd already moved beyond. This right here, this is the real test of your manifestation practice. Not a test of willpower or discipline, but a test of energetic stability and consistency. Because here's what you need to understand. The quantum field doesn't test you to punish you or prove you wrong. It reflects you to reveal where your broadcast is breaking down, where you're still holding on to old frequencies. And this is the exact point where most people unconsciously slip right back into their old timeline. Not because they failed or because they are not good enough, but because they didn't anchor their new frequency deeply enough to withstand the normal resistance that comes with any real change. But what if holding that frequency didn't have to require massive amounts of force or discipline? What if staying in alignment was less about fighting against your old patterns and more about remembering who you really are? The truth that nobody talks about enough is that you don't actually have to fight your old patterns and programs. You don't have to go to war with yourself. You just need to be more consistent in signaling and broadcasting the new version of yourself. That's it. Let me break down how your frequency is actually maintained throughout your day. It happens through these small, often silent agreements you make with yourself. Micro decisions in tiny moments that nobody else sees. Subtle reactions to everyday situations. Emotional signatures that you either reinforce or interrupt. Most people believe that manifestation requires these massive quantum leaps, huge awakenings, dramatic breakthroughs. But the reality is way more subtle and way more powerful. Timelines actually shift when your tiny everyday choices stop contradicting your new identity. Let me give you a concrete example of what this looks like in real life. You receive a message that would normally cause your chest to tighten and your mind to spiral. Maybe it's bad news, maybe it's a delay, maybe it's rejection of some kind. The old version of you might immediately overthink it, worry about what it means, rush to fix it or control it. But instead, you pause. You take a conscious breath. You smile, even if it's just a tiny smile. You remind yourself, I am the signal, I am the frequency I choose to broadcast. That pause isn't passive or weak. That pause is quantum recalibration in action. That pause is you telling the quantum field, I no longer react from my conditioned past, I now respond from alignment with my chosen future. Another example. You feel that familiar urge to rush, to control, to chase after something or someone, but you catch yourself and interrupt the pattern. You ask yourself this simple question, would the version of me who has already received this feel this sense of urgency? Would they be grasping and desperate? And if your honest answer is no, then you fully embody that no in your system. You slow your pace down. You trust the natural rhythm and timing. You send out your signal calmly instead of grasping frantically. These small moments throughout your day accumulate and build momentum. They create a new energetic posture in how you move through life. And posture is power because your posture constantly communicates to the quantum field what you believe about yourself. It says, I am safe enough to allow things to unfold. I am confident enough that I don't need to prove anything. I already am who I've been working so hard to become. That's when things begin to speed up in ways that feel almost magical. Timelines start collapsing faster than you expected. Now let's add another crucial dimension to this practice. To sustain coherence throughout your entire day, your environment needs to reflect and support your chosen frequency, not constantly challenge it. This doesn't mean you need to isolate yourself from the world or avoid any kind of contrast or difficulty. It means you carefully and intentionally select the spaces, people, and influences that genuinely support the state you're choosing to embody. Ask yourself these questions. What music actually enhances and amplifies the version of me I am embodying right now? What scents, textures, colors, or lighting in my space remind my nervous system that I am safe and present? Who are the 3 people in my life who speak to my future self rather than constantly reinforcing my past identity? Even more subtly, which thoughts am I no longer willing to entertain and engage with, not because they're bad or wrong, but simply because they don't belong to this new signal I'm broadcasting anymore? This is what I call energetic hygiene. It's frequency stewardship, not in an obsessive, controlling way, but in an intentional, conscious way. And whenever you catch yourself slipping back into old patterns, and you will because you're human, you simply return to the breath, not to calm yourself down or manage anxiety, but to transmit your signal clearly. You repeat your anchor words or phrases. You pulse your frequency again. You reclaim your role as the conscious broadcaster of your reality. Here's the deeper truth in all of this. You're not trying to maintain some artificially high vibration 24/7. You're practicing being unavailable for anything that doesn't match your chosen frequency. Over time, and I'm talking weeks and months of consistent practice, this stops being something you have to consciously do and becomes your natural baseline state. You become emotionally resilient to chaos and drama, not numb or disconnected, but genuinely grounded. Not robotic in your responses, but sovereign in your energy. And that's when the quantum field really begins to bend reality for you. It starts organizing circumstances, arranging synchronicities, delivering opportunities. Not because you pushed harder or did more, but because you remained steady and consistent when you would have previously recoiled. You stayed open when you used to automatically brace and protect. You stayed certain when you once would have immediately doubted. That's what actually shifts timelines at the quantum level. In this final part we're moving into now, we're going to bring this entire journey full circle. You're going to see why surrender isn't weakness, but actually the final and most powerful stage of quantum transmission. You're going to discover the paradox of what people call effortless manifestation and why, once you genuinely stop needing the outcome to feel complete, the outcome itself begins seeking you out. Now, we arrive at the ultimate truth, the deepest layer of this entire process. This is the moment when all the techniques and rituals and alignment practices fade into something much quieter, much simpler, and somehow more powerful than anything you could ever force or perform your way into. Because manifestation at the quantum level doesn't happen when you finally perfect the practice. It happens when you forget your need for the result entirely. When your frequency becomes so complete, so magnetic, so internally aligned with itself, the quantum field has absolutely no choice but to mirror you back, not as a reward for good behavior, but as a pure reflection of what you're being. This is where real surrender begins. And I'm not talking about the misunderstood version of surrender where you give up, lower your standards, or let go from sheer exhaustion. No, true surrender in the quantum sense is a vibrational choice. It's when your entire being is in such complete harmony with your intention that you no longer obsessively monitor the timeline. You no longer scan the quantum field desperately looking for evidence and results. You no longer plead with the universe to show you it's listening, because you are no longer separate from what you've asked for. You've become it. Surrender in this space isn't about giving up on your dreams. It's about yielding to this present moment exactly as it is. It's leaning back into trust, while still moving forward with clarity and precision. It's having gentle, soft eyes while maintaining a sharply focused spirit. It's taking calm, aligned action without any tension or desperation attached to it. And here's the paradox that blows most people's minds when they finally experience it. It's exactly when you stop needing the outcome that the outcome starts actively seeking you out. Why does this happen? Because the quantum field responds most powerfully to freedom. Not freedom from taking action or effort, but freedom from attachment, from the desperate need for things to look a certain way by a certain time. When you're no longer energetically entangled with the when or the how or the why not yet, your frequency becomes completely clear, powerfully focused, and absolutely inevitable in its manifestation. This is what Neville Goddard meant when he talked about living in the wish fulfilled. Not waiting for it, not hoping for it, not chasing after it, but embodying right now, in this present moment, the version of yourself who no longer even asks the question, because you already are that vibration, you already are that frequency, and in that instant of complete embodiment, time itself collapses. Synchronicities start falling into place like puzzle pieces. Doors open that were previously locked. Phone calls come through that you weren't expecting. People suddenly remember you exist. Creative ideas flow effortlessly. Money shows up from unexpected sources. And none of it feels like you made it happen through force. Because truthfully, you didn't make it happen, you became it. And that's the fundamental difference between performance and power, between force and flow, between trying desperately and transmitting naturally. So, as you move forward from this video and back into your life, I don't want you to add more effort to your plate. I don't want you to add more techniques or more things to do. I want you to remove the noise. I want you to exhale deeply. I want you to trust on a cellular level that what is truly meant for you doesn't need convincing. It only requires coherence between who you're being and what you're calling in. Let today be the day you stop burning energy, trying to get somewhere, and start channeling that energy into becoming someone. The version of yourself that no longer performs for the quantum field, but speaks its language fluently and naturally. And when that happens, when you become that frequency, everything you've ever dreamed of begins to orbit around you, not because you chased it down, but because you finally tuned your frequency to the truth you've always known deep down, you were it all along. Now, if something stirred within you today, if something finally clicked or resonated or helped you reconnect with your core truth, then you're already in the shift. You're already experiencing the transformation. And you're not alone in this. This isn't just a video you stumbled upon. This is a frequency, an energetic space where science meets soul and where conscious creators gather to amplify the signal together. So, if this vibration aligns with yours, if you felt even 1% more aligned after watching this, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it. Let's grow together. Let's shift together. Let's remember together who we really are. Make sure you share this video with your friends and family. You might be a blessing in disguise for them. For you, it might just be sharing a link. But for someone in your circle, it might be the message that shifts their entire reality. Remember, you're not just sharing content. You're spreading a frequency of empowerment and possibility. And that positive energy, that act of generous sharing, it amplifies your own signal in the quantum field. And speaking of next steps, in the next video, we're going to explore something even more powerful. We're going to dive into the specific quantum codes hidden in your daily habits that either amplify or block your manifestation signal. I'm talking about the invisible patterns most people never notice that are either working for them or against them 24/7. You're going to learn how to identify these codes in your own life and reprogram them at the quantum level. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. It's going to completely shift how you see your everyday choices and routines. You made it all the way to the end, and that tells me something important. You're not here by accident. You're here because you're ready. So hit that like button to anchor this frequency. Drop a comment sharing what clicked for you today, and share this message with one person who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you haven't already, because this is truly just the beginning of what we are uncovering together. Welcome home to your frequency.